And good afternoon, producer Susan.
Good afternoon, Jerzee Joe. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. You all set to set your clocks ahead
Oh,
Saturday?
I'm tired of this. I thought we were done with this.
You and me both, but it's here again. Here we go
Oh,
again. So just for those who are, so let me just tell everybody what day it is today. So today is March the 4th, and this coming weekend, which will be what, the 8th?
yeah.
The 8th is daylight saving time starts this Saturday
Well,
night,
it technically starts on Sunday.
Sunday at 2
Fine.
a 2 a.m. Yes.
Yeah.
So daylight savings time. Anyway, so this is March the 4th, and it's week 6 of the Trump presidency. And man, we still have a lot to talk about.
He's
Have
been
you,
busy.
it's been busy, and I've got too much stuff. We're not going to fit it all week, but I'll tell you what. I mean, I started with like 14 items. I whittled it down to 8, and I guarantee you we're not going to get to the 8. Anyway, our quote of the week is from Winston Churchill. You remember how he is, how who he was, right?
Yes.
And as Winston Churchill talks about, it's his quote about how Americans eventually wind up doing the right thing, which I think is where we are right now with Ukraine. And the stupidest thing I've heard all week, we'll play a clip describing a proposed new law in California that would make it a crime to shoot an intruder in your home. How's that for stupid?
Uh,
Somebody's in your house, you can't shoot them. Okay. We'll play the clip of that. Um, We'll give you some examples of the massive amounts of waste and abuse being uncovered by Musk's DOGE team and ask why the press isn't covering these findings. Remember, this is the situation with Jerzee Joe. News and
yeah.
perspective you won't hear on TV. And we're going to tell you some things that if Biden had been doing them would be the headline story on the evening news. Yet you're not hearing coverage. None of the networks are covering these massive findings that the DOGE team is uncovering. So in addition to letting you know about these huge things they're uncovering, we're also going to ask why isn't the press covering them? We all heard about the meeting that Zelensky had with Trump this past Saturday
Yes.
that blew
Yep.
up.
hmm
Did you know that he had a meeting with the Democrats ahead of that meeting?
I did not know that.
He had a meeting with the Democrats, and we'll tell you what happened at that meeting and why what happened at his meeting with the Democrats probably influenced what happened when he finally got to the Oval Office. And our hypocrite of the week, you know who Jake Tapper is?
I don't think I know that name.
Jake Tapper. He's one of the commentators on CNN. You know, he news anchor, commentator, opinion piece. Well, he's come out with a new book um, talking about how much how big of a scandal it was that the press covered up Biden's mental decline, during the term of his presidency. Well, we're going to
Yeah.
play a clip of him uh, in an argument with Lara Bush, uh, where he's covering up. He's doing exactly what he wrote the book about. He was denying when Lara Bush said Biden is in mental decline. He's attacking her for making that claim, and yet he just wrote a book saying this was a national scandal that the press conspired to conceal that from the American people. He wins the Hypocrite of the Year award. Um, we'll also tell you which U.S. Senator helped pass a bill that netted his wife $2.6 million in government funds and how they tried to disguise how that money was getting to her. We'll tell you about a black preacher from Georgia who referred to other black people who voted for Trump using racial epithets that would cause a huge uproar and condemnation by the media if those same words had been spoken by a white person. We'll tell you which U.S. bank mistakenly credited a customer's account with $81 trillion. Can you imagine you open your bank statement and it shows that you get an $81 trillion deposit?
I don't even know how that's possible. I could
Well,
see like moving the decimal point accidentally over two spaces, but more than that, I don't see how that's possible.
we'll tell you about an $81 trillion mistake, and we'll tell you which bank did it. And we'll also tell you how often big mistakes, with a B, not with the T, with the trillion, but with how often billion-dollar mistakes happen. We'll tell you about a new trend by women involving making and wearing fake copies of their engagement rings. We'll tell you, if we have time, how a man from Colombia tried to smuggle $10,000 worth of cocaine through airport security without success. And our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Pennsylvania, where a young father confronts two armed home invaders, and despite being wounded in the gunfight, he shot and killed one of the two thugs, and the other one ran away. All right. So I don't think we're going to fit it all in, but we'll try. So here's a quote of the week from Winston Churchill. I love this one. Remember, now this is back in the 1940s. He said, "You can always count on Americans to do the right thing after they have tried everything else." And I think it's to the point where we're getting ready to do the right thing. But I love it. You can always count on Americans to do the right thing after they have tried everything else. And it's not just Ukraine. If you look at all the other things we've tried over the decades, we try, well, that didn't work. Let's try this. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this.
Yep.
So anyway, that's our quote of the week. All right. Stupidest thing I've heard all week. We got a clip. This is not law yet, but this is a proposed law in California. Where it's Here we go. By the way, and we all know about the castle doctrine in most states. If
Yeah.
somebody's in
And
your
I think
house,
California doesn't have that. Is one of the states that doesn't, right?
well, they actually do have a variation of it, but now they want to repeal that. Here we go. Here's the
California bill would prevent homeowners from defending themselves against criminals unless they believe their lives are in danger. Central Valley Assemblyman David Tongipa says if Assembly Bill 1333 passes, the new bill would put more people in danger. KC24's Jason Toktajian joins us in studio to break down the bill. Jason.
That's right. AB 1333 basically restricts self-defense, mandates that you retreat in the event of a crime, and does away with protections for the use of force. Assemblyman David Tongipa says this bill would put Californians in danger.
I'm calling it's a criminal first agenda.
Representative David Tongipa is questioning the motive behind Assembly Bill 1333, making self-defense during crimes like home break-ins illegal.
If somebody broke into somebody's house, that individual, the homeowner, had to do everything within their power to either leave, flee, and prove that the individual was trying to kill them if they used necessary self-defense and took that individual out.
The Merced County Sheriff can't believe AB 1333 was introduced at all.
That bill to me is too ambiguous to protect the people that actually need protecting.
He says the bill would make his job difficult.
Now we've got to second guess somebody that was in fear for their life.
Assemblyman Tongipa says the bill, if passed, will put the burden of proof on the homeowner instead of the crook.
What it really did was shift the burden of intent from the criminal to the homeowner, and they had to prove that they did everything that they could to protect themselves and that the criminal breaking in did not have the intent to kill them.
A Fresno defense attorney explains why Assemblyman Rick Zabur introduced AB 1333.
He's simply trying to prevent situations like the one with Kyle Rittenhouse.
And by the way, this attorney, he looks like he's a hippie. He's got long shoulder length hair. And what they're basically saying, duty to retreat. In other words, if somebody broke in your house and maybe there was even a fist fight, what this bill says, if you couldn't prove that you ran away and locked yourself in the bathroom, and this guy broke down the bathroom door, and only after he broke down your bathroom door did you shoot him, you would be guilty of a crime. That's basically what this bill says.
But I'm confused. They brought in Rittenhouse. Isn't he the guy from Wisconsin?
Yeah, who was attacked?
Who was in the middle of the street? Like,
right,
he
and
wasn't
was
defending
attacked,
his
right.
house.
And a guy came at him in the street swinging a skateboard at his head. This lawyer, I cut it off. I can't. This guy.
I think they're comparing apples to oranges there.
They are. This long-haired hippie lawyer is trying to compare a guy in your house at 2 o'clock in the morning with Kyle Rittenhouse in the middle of a riot. So, but again, the California bill that's proposed basically says if somebody's in your house, you have to go lock yourself in your bathroom, and only if the guy breaks down your bathroom door do you have the right to shoot him. That's how stupid this bill is. So, do you think this wins the stupidest thing I've heard all week contest?
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, the fact that California has a restricted castle law in itself is,
Right. Anyway, but it also, this duty to retreat. So like also if you're out in the street somewhere and some guy is punching you in the face and you have a concealed carry and he's punching you, you can't pull out your gun and shoot him. You have to go run away. In other words, in most states it's called stand your ground, like in Florida. if somebody's punching you and hitting you or swinging a 2x4 at you, you can pull your gun and shoot them. If this bill passes, you have to try to flee, and only if you can prove that nothing else, you were unable to flee, do you have the right to pull out your gun and shoot the guy. So it's not just in the home, it's anywhere. So that's our winner. That could be the stupidest thing I've heard all month. All right. Let's move on to Jake Tapper, the CNN commentator. He really recently released a new book titled, and here's the title of the book, Original Sin, Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again, describing how the media collectively conspired to conceal President Biden's obvious mental decline from the American people. Now, that's from the jacket of the book. Let me read that again, because when you hear him challenge Lara Bush, it's so again, the title of the book, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. And that's the title. And then it goes on. The book describes how the media collectively conspired to conceal President Biden's obvious mental decline from the American people. So that's from the cover of the jacket. Now, let me play this where Lara Bush 2 years ago is on CNN pointing out what was obvious to her and most Americans with half a brain, that Biden was in mental decline. And listen to Jake Tapper, who just wrote this book, attack her for even suggesting that Biden's in mental decline.
What we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You are
to
no.
watch somebody on stage
I can't. It's so
questions
amazing. It's so amazing to me that
and try and figure out an answer.
a cognitive
Well,
decline.
when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that.
You hear him? You have no standing to diagnose his cognitive decline. This is the same guy who wrote the book. When she suggests he's in mental decline, Jake Tapper is attacking and defending Biden. Here.
Somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses, diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you, your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
Diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
just talked
is that
about a
we
cognitive
can
decline.
see that Joe Biden
I have one last question for you, Lara. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel sorry for Joe Biden.
Is there any doubt in your mind that Jake Tapper was defending Biden's and trying to conceal his mental decline?
And I don't understand why people were. It wasn't until the very end of his presidency did people really start to question it.
Right. Was there any doubt in your mind 2 years ago that Biden was in mental decline?
Oh, I absolutely. But people would have argued 2 years ago. But I think at the end, people were starting to get on board with the idea.
Right. So here's Jake Tapper 2 years ago when Lara Trump, L-A-R-A, Lara Trump is saying, it's obvious that Biden's in mental decline. And Jake Tapper is pouncing on her. You're not qualified. You have no standing. Mm-hmm. And then he comes out and says, well, it was a disgrace that the media tried to cover up Biden's mental decline. We'll talk about the pot calling the kettle black, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what gall for him to write a book after he was part of that same media that was part of the cover-up.
Yep.
All right. I know you listened to me on the radio. I was on the radio in Denver last week, and you heard me talk about a guy named Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island, right?
Yep.
Well, he helped pass a bill that netted his wife $2.6 million in government funds. And by the way, he's currently under a congressional ethics investigation. So let me tell you what happened. So he's been accused of violating ethics rules after backing a law that financially benefited his wife's environmental organization. She had started an environmental organization. Now he voted for a bill, a government to fund her nonprofit and a couple of others. She created an environmental group called Ocean Conservancy. And she was a senior policy advisor starting as far back in 2008. Well, after Whitehouse, who was the head of the committee, pushed this bill through, and Ocean Conservancy got 14.2 million in federal grants in order to avoid an obvious conflict of interest. His wife resigned from Ocean Conservancy, but part of that resignation was that Ocean Conservancy would sign a consulting agreement with a new company that she headed up. So so rather than the money going to Ocean Conservancy, which was the group she founded and was the CEO of, which would be a clear ethics violation, she said, okay, I'm going to resign and I'm going to start a consultant. I'm going to start my own LLC. But before I do that, we're going to sign a consulting agreement with my new LLC. And oh, by the way, I'm the only employee of this new LLC. So they funneled the money to Ocean Conservancy, and then Ocean Conservancy turned around and paid that LLC, which was owned by his wife, $2.6 million.
That's some creative accounting there.
Of that 14.2 million. So, talk about a sleazebag. He pushes the legislation through, makes sure that the company, and again, it was a quote, a nonprofit, that the nonprofit his wife founded got $14.2 million grant. And then to disguise the fact that the money was going, a big chunk of the money was going to his wife resigned from the nonprofit, started her own LLC that had a consulting agreement, so that when you look at where the checks were being made out to, she didn't work for Ocean Conservancy, but she worked for another company that was getting money from Ocean Conservancy. That's how sleazy the whole deal was.
Yeah.
But he'll get reelected, like all Democrats do. He will get reelected. I have no doubt about that. Any thoughts on how sleazy that deal was?
Yeah, absolutely. That is, yeah.
Okay. All right. So DOGE has been doing finding some incredible, we talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. And what baffles me, and I've talked to a dozen people about this, not one of them has heard about any of these things. Unless you go online, you read conservative news sites, you watch Fox News, there's been a virtual press blackout. So here's just a couple of things. So last week, DOGE discovered that Department of Veterans Affairs was paying $27 million per month. And in case you're bad at math, $27 million per month is $324 million per year to rent a 613,000 square foot office building.
Yeah.
If you're not sure how big that is, a Walmart is about 50,000 square feet. So if you have a 600,000 square foot office building, that's the size of 12 Walmarts. Now, that building was designed to house 2,843 employees, but it was a key card entry building, so they could track how many people were showing up to work in that building every day. Out of 2,843 employees, you know how many people on average they clocked into that building?
Oh, I'm sure it was like 5% or less.
387 people.
Yeah.
387 people clocking into a 600,000 square foot building that was, and again, it wasn't government owned, it was rented, it was privately owned.
I feel like even at 2,000 something people, I feel like that's a very large space for even 2,000 people.
2,800 people. And in fact, let me do some quick math here. Let me see how many square feet. That's a great point. Let me do some quick math here.
I mean, I have a nice, maybe a 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 office. It's nice size, and that's 100 square foot.
Well, that was 220 square feet per person. So now, yeah, you have to have a lobby, and you might have a cafeteria, and maybe there's an auditorium,
bathrooms, and
bathrooms and stuff. But that was 220 square feet per person. But still, 350 people in a building the size of 12 Walmarts.
Yeah.
Now the press decided that we didn't need to cover that. So then they go down to San Antonio, and they found, now that was Department of Veterans Affairs. Then they found out that the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, had been paying a company called Family Endeavors $18 million a month to operate an empty facility in West Texas in San Antonio. Mm. You didn't hear about that in the news either, right?
No, I didn't hear about that either.
By the way, $18 million a month is $200 million a year. Software. Does the company the Penn State do licenses, or they just buy the software outright?
No, we have licenses.
Okay. Department of Labor, they found that they found 380 Microsoft 365 licenses that had not 50, not 10, zero users. 380 Microsoft 360, and like Microsoft 365 is Word, Excel, PowerPoint,
Your email too.
email account, zero users, zero users. 128 Microsoft Teams conference room licenses that were only installed in 30 rooms. 128 licenses they were paying for, only 30 installed. 250 VS Code licenses out of 250, only 33 were used. 129 Photoshop licenses, only 22 were being used. 5 cybersecurity licenses, each with 20, each could handle 20,000 seats. So you have a cybersecurity license. In other words, if you have a company, you buy the license and you can put 20,000 people on one license. They had 5 of those licenses, which is 100,000 people. Department of Labor only employs 15,000 people. Remember, so they had 5 cybersecurity licenses. Each one could handle 20,000 users.
And where's their IT person who's supposed to be like managing this
well, and
that is the job of an IT manager, is to also not only like fix your computer when it's broken, but to manage these things.
Right. Or even the agency head. Don't you ever look at your chart of accounts?
Yeah.
When I was running a business, every month I'd look at my telecommunications charge, I'd look at my rent charge, I'd look at my heating bill, I'd look at my phone bill. So who were the idiots that Biden had running these agencies that were clueless as to this fraudulent lace? But here's to me the bigger story. These are massive, massive examples of, waste, abuse and waste. You didn't hear about any of these stories unless you heard them from me, right?
And going back to the office space, I mean, we're not just talking about square footage. We're talking about heat and electricity.
Yeah, heat, light, electricity. Yeah,
ventilation. That all adds up to the wasteful spending.
And by the way, 27 million a month. By the way, I did put the square is outrageous. Even for Washington D.C., that was an outrageous rent.
Yeah, I was going to question that. That seems like an awful high price rent there.
That's about 5 times higher than it should have been. It should have been around 5 million a month. In other words, yeah, it should have been around the math I did, and I looked at other comparable office buildings. It should have been 5 million a month. Whoever signed that lease, it was 27 million a month. I wonder if there were any kickbacks involved there.
But then you add on top of that, electricity. Because if you have just, you said only, I forget what you said, like 300 people working there.
Yeah,
only 300 you have people. To have electricity in the whole building and ventilation in the whole building.
Only 350 people showing up every day.
Yeah, so for the only 350 people that are showing up, you need electricity and HVAC for those.
You got to air condition the whole building. You have to heat the whole building. You have to air condition the whole building.
I mean, that's super wasteful in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, so let's move on to the Trump-Zelensky meeting that blew up on Saturday. And here's a quote by Democratic Senator Chris Murphy. So this is not some conspiracy theory you read in conservative. This is right from the horse's mouth. This is from Democrat Senator Chris Murphy, who said, and this was prior to the meeting, just a few hours prior to him meeting with Trump. And this is from Chris Murphy. Just finished a meeting with President Zelensky here in Washington. He confirmed that the Ukrainian people will not support a fake peace agreement where Putin gets everything he wants and no security agreements for Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and he went on to say, so basically, the Democrats convinced Zelensky to meet with them prior to meeting with Trump, and they convinced him that he needed to demand a security agreement from Trump in this meeting. Now, the whole strategy with Trump is that he's trying to play mediator, which means he's going to shuttle back and forth between Zelensky and Putin, trying to get a deal done. And phase one was to get this minerals deal, which had been pre-agreed to. The Ukrainian parliament approved it. Zelensky said he would sign it. And at the last minute, the Democrats convinced Zelensky, you need to tell Trump you're not going to sign this deal that everybody's agreed to unless he gives you a security. Well, if you're Trump, you can't go to Putin and say that we've agreed to defend Ukraine militarily. You can't be a mediator if you take a side like that. So Zelensky got played like a chump by the Democrats. into, at the last minute, blindsiding Trump with this out of the blue demand. The whole strategy was we're going to sign the minerals agreement, and then Trump's going to go to Putin and say, look, we've got this agreement. We're going to have U.S. citizens, U.S. contractors, working in, working in the Ukraine. And we will take it as an act of war if you start shelling Ukraine while we have U.S. citizens working there. That to me is as good as a security agreement. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have the optics of, yes, we've just signed a security agreement, which means I'm no longer a neutral mediator. I'm now aligned with Zelensky. You can't be a mediator if you're aligned with one party or the other. So Zelensky got played by the Democrats. I think it's shameful that the Democrats intentionally torpedoed this deal, which is exactly what they did. And I think the only reason they torpedoed the deal was to try to make Trump look bad.
Yeah.
Can you think of any other reason why the Democrats would torpedo the deal?
I don't understand why they would have done that. I mean, again, and as Trump said, this whole thing is edging on the edge of World War III.
Yeah. So, but most people have no idea that the Democrats had a meeting with Zelensky just prior to the
No, I
meeting.
had no idea because I think everybody saw the outrageous meeting between Trump and Zelensky, but I don't think or at least I didn't know that he met with the Democrats prior to that blow up.
No. So it was just, anyway, so that's where we are. But I believe, by the way, before this week is out, that agreement will get signed. So I think Zelensky understands he made a huge mistake. He's going to come back and say, my apologies, I'm going to say with the agreement's back on. All right. How much time we got left?
You have about 8 minutes.
All right, real quick. This got me banned from Facebook because I quoted the black preacher. In Georgia last week, a black preacher was ranting. He was giving some speech somewhere and he referred to black people in his community who voted for Trump. Now this is him. He referred to black people in Georgia who voted for Trump as coons and runaway slaves.
Now this is a black preacher talking about
his own people. His own people. He referred to them as coons and runaway slaves.
That's a horrible thing to say.
Right. Now, again, if your eye said this, you'd get banned from Facebook, you'd be ostracized by most of the people in your social circle, and quite possibly fired from your job. Well, guess what?
Yeah, that's one of the most racist things I've ever heard.
Well, guess what? I posted this story and I simply quoted, I said, here's what this teacher said, black preacher said, and I actually put the word, and I quoted him. I even put the word coon and runaway slaves in parentheses. Well, because Facebook algorithm looks for stuff like that, I got banned from Facebook because I quoted the black preacher.
Bringing light to what this horrible person said about.
Right. I'm bringing light to what he said, and the Facebook algorithm banned me for quoting the preacher. All right. Running short on time. Have you heard about women having fake copies of their engagement?
Yeah, and I totally think that's something, if you're going on vacation or something and you have a beautiful engagement ring that's very expensive, that you'd want to not risk losing it. So having a cheap knockoff made for, traveling, that's totally something I would do.
I had never heard of that before.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's a great thing to do. You don't want to lose it.
Yep. Yeah, so what they do is they go to a jeweler and for a couple of $100, they say, make me one that looks like this, but make it with cubic zirconiums.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they leave the new one home in the safe or in the safe deposit box, and they wear the fake one on vacation. So
absolutely,
that's the new one. Fake copies of their engagement rings.
Totally love that idea.
All right, so let's move on to the $81 trillion bank area. So last week, Citigroup mistakenly credited a customer's account. I'm sorry, it was last year, with an $81 trillion deposit. Now, wait, and it meant to be just a $280 deposit, 280. Now,
I just don't understand how did this happen. Again, if you forgot to put the decimal point in, I could see how.
It would be if you forgot the decimal point, it'd be $28,000.
Yeah, exactly.
280.00.
Exactly my point. Yeah. So how do you go from moving the decimal point or forgetting the decimal point altogether? How does that equate to a $1 trillion mistake?
$81 trillion, which, by the way, what's the U.S. national debt right now?
It's up in the trillions.
37 trillion. So that's more than two times the entire debt of the United States government. So 81 trillion, more than twice as much of the entire national debt. Now, by the way, if you think this is a never before happened, the article goes on to say near misses such as this when a bank processes the wrong amount but is able to recover. Citibank suffered 10 near misses of $1 billion or more in the last year and 13 in the prior year. Can you imagine?
Again, I don't understand how these types of mistakes are even possible.
So, yeah.
And I admit that I myself, when I'm like, and more so when I'm doing it on my phone, you know, I forget to put the decimal point in, but that's only 2 placeholders. That's how did they make such monumental mistakes?
And apparently they did it 10 times last year and 13 the year. And to your point, 280.00, if you get the decimal point, would be 28,000. Yeah. Okay. But but apparently it happens on a regular basis. $10 billion errors last year and 13 the year before. All right. So how much time we got for our taxpayer relief shot?
We got about 5 minutes.
All right. So for those who may be new, here's why we call him taxpayer relief shot. This is the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, and he'll tell you why we call them taxpayer relief shots. Here we go.
If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
Or if Sheriff Grady Judd, let's see where Sheriff Grady Judd went to here. Okay.
But we have received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
And by the way, I've got some updated numbers. Remember, we talked that it was $80,000 a year to keep a thug in jail. Well, the new national average is $89,000. Call it 90 grand. So between the trial and the court-appointed attorney and 10 years in jail at 90 grand a year, it's $1 million to arrest a thug, give him a trial, and send him to jail for 10 years. So it's $1 million. You shoot and kill the thug, you just save the taxpayers $1 million. All right. So let's go to Pennsylvania, which does have a castle doctrine. You don't need to run and hide in the bathroom. I don't know where Frankfort, PA is. You have an idea where Frankfort, PA is?
Don't know where that is.
Well, this is from Frankfort, PA. Here we go. Oh, hang on. Be sure.
Good afternoon. Some of you already know who I am. My name is Brian Campbell. I've lived in Hansville 62 years.
Well, I'm sorry. And this is it's too long. I think I got the wrong clip.
New Jersey might be some.
Hang on, that might be the wrong clip.
Well, while you figure that out, I did Google Frankfort, Pennsylvania is a suburb of Philadelphia.
You got. I'm sorry. Suburb.
It's a suburb of Philadelphia. It's just north of the city.
Okay. All right. And let me see why I couldn't. See if I can find the right clip. If not, well, I'll just have to tell you that. Let's see, last Thursday. Let's see if it comes up here. I could have sworn I had the right clip. Let's try this one. Here we go.
Well, developing right now, a local father is shot during a terrifying home invasion, but he also had a gun and fired back.
All this happened while his wife and 4 young daughters were in their Frankfort home. Eyewitness News reporter Trang Doe is live on Pratt Street. Good morning, Trang.
Well, good morning, Rahel and Jim. Yes, police just cleared the scene moments ago. And right now, they're not exactly sure why this family was targeted, but they say it appears to have been an attempted robbery. And though the homeowner was shot twice, his wife and 4 little girls are okay. Terrifying moments for a family of 6 in the city's Frankfort section. A gun battle right in their own living room, leaving the father of 4 little girls seriously hurt.
Preliminary information is that this was a home invasion robbery where the perpetrators were met by the 27-year-old homeowner who had a gun on his own.
Police say the family just returned home to the 1900 block of Pratt Street around 11 Monday night. There was a knock on the door and 2 men forced their way in.
There was a struggle between the 27-year-old homeowner and these two males. And one of the perpetrators did shoot the homeowner 2 times in his mouth and his leg.
Chief Inspector Scott Small says the homeowner then returned fire, fatally shooting one of the men in the head. The other ran off. This violence unfolding while the man's wife and 4 young daughters, ages 4, 3, 1, and 5 months, were upstairs getting ready for bed.
We're still very fortunate that his wife, nor any of his 4 children, were struck by gunfire or injured in any way.
All right. How's that scary? 2 men forced
Yeah, I
away
mean,
from home at
protecting
11
his
o'clock.
small children.
And 4 small children. And even though, by the way, the guy that ran off, if they catch him, he can be charged with murder, right? Because his buddy got killed, and he was part of he was committing a felony. And when somebody died, even though it was his buddy. And by the way, congratulations to the dad. He was shot twice, and managed to get his gun and return fire. So you never know when it's going to happen to you. Anyway, I know we only got a minute or so left, right?
Yep.
All right. So anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, it's a beautiful spring day.
All right. Remember to set your clock ahead. Anyway, thank you everybody for giving up for listening to this podcast. If you found them interesting as important as I did, I hope you keep listening. If you want to see other materials and story links, give producer Susan a couple of days, and you'll be able to find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com, with Jerzee being spelled Jerzee, Jerzee. And if you want to email me with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, you can do that by sending me an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and 2 E's. And with that, producer Susan, anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, I'm going to go enjoy the last few minutes of daylight.
All right. Talk to you next week. You take care. Bye-bye.